Welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisin, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And joining me just a little bit south of me, I'm in Encinitas. He's in Del Mar. For all of you who don't know or listening, those are two little coastal cities just north of San Diego. But I think for most of my listeners, they know where that is. Good morning to you, Ken. How you doing?
Good morning, Greg. So good to be back with you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on Inside Personal Growth again. And it's always a pleasure speaking about you and learning new things, which is what I want my listeners to do today, is really, we're going to be speaking about his book. And I don't know if you have a copy of there you can hold up, but How We Go On is the title of the book. He does have it. There we go. Self-compassion, courage, and gratitude for the path forward. And I'm going to...
Katie Couric on the top.
I saw that.
See that. Yeah. Katie gave me a great endorsement.
Well, and on top of it, I know she lost her husband. So
yes.
She from colon cancer, and she certainly has been an advocate. And obviously you as well. We were saying tomorrow is the anniversary of your daughter's death in an accident, which happened on March 27th, 1996. But I'm going to let the listeners know about you. Then we're going to dig into this. We're really going to take this down to people learning how to become more compassionate with themselves and learning how to, I'm going to say, have courage and have gratitude in spite of some of these things that have gone on. And those are big words for people that are dealing with grief. And if there's anybody that can help them, it's you. So Ken Druck is one of the world's leading experts on grief and resilience. Since losing his own daughter, which we said tomorrow will be the anniversary in a tragic accident. He's worked with families after 9/11, Sandy Hook, Columbine. And he's dedicated his life to providing roadmaps for getting through life's most daunting and difficult times and navigating its daily ups and downs. Dr. Ken is a best-selling author of several books, and you can go out there. We did a podcast with him in 2012, June. On the post, we'll put a link to that. But this book, How We Go On, Self-Compassion, Courage, and Gratitude on the Path Forward, was released in 2023. He's the recipient of prestigious Distinguished Contribution to Psychology Award, a lecturer at UCSD School of Medicine, and a noted speaker, conferences, special gatherings, and global organizations. You can pick him up on his website, but you can also go to www.howwegoon.com, howwegoon.com, the title of the book. And the other place you can reach him is just at his website, which is kendruck, druck.com. There you can see about his books, press, his self-care handbook, which is noted there as well. And I think that'd be a good thing for you guys to download. So, Ken, without further ado, what I'd like to do is, because you start this book off, and actually maybe even you start before it, you gave a dedication to your dad, Charles Druck, and you have his picture right at the beginning of the book.
Yep.
And I was just curious because I didn't know your dad's story, but maybe look in the lineage of things as we become wisdom tellers and storytellers. Storytelling is really important. It'd be good to know why you dedicated this book to your dad.
Thank you for, first of all, seeing that, being the kind of guy that would recognize that and want to take note of it, because it was extremely important to me. My dad passed in 1986, 10 years before my daughter passed.
Uh-huh.
And yet my relationship with him has deepened, my understanding of him, my appreciation and gratitude. of everything he was trying to do, everything he was trying to impart to his kids, everything he was doing in the world has only grown. And, we speak about the love that never dies. Well, it not only never dies, sometimes it can grow. The richness, the understanding, the forgiveness, the appreciation that we have for people that have passed or people that are still with us.
Mm-hmm.
Aging parents. 2 books ago, my book was called Raising an Aging Parent. And it was about the relationship that so many of us are having right now or have had in recent years with a parent who's getting older. And we're saying, wait a minute, we're not going to be here that much longer. My own 4-year-old grandson asked me a couple of months ago, he said, "Poppy, are you old?"
He said, "I'm older."
and I said, "Well, what do you think?" Because it's always best to answer a kid with asking them what they think. Let's draw them out rather than trying to give them the answers that we have and putting pressure on ourselves to have it come up with an answer for everything. And then he said, are you going to die soon? When are you going to die? Because he's learning at 4 years old, you're beginning to have a sense that not everything goes on. Your cat, or you see a bird in the street, or you watching a story about somebody who dies. But the story of my father originates, first of all, it's the growing deep appreciation and gratitude that I have for him that made me want to dedicate the book to him. But it's also what he had to go on from. Coming over, he was the first generation. He was the youngest of 5 brothers, the first generation from his parents who came over from Russia, from Ukraine, and whose parents and relatives had died in the Holocaust, trying to make their place and make their way in New York. And my father kind of not knowing what he was good at, or, the schools didn't tell you, they didn't give you tests to say, hey, you're brilliant in this, you should go into this. My father had to scramble. At a very young age, he was turning the styles at Yankee Stadium so he could go see Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig play baseball. And then he went into the Army. He served this country, and he did a great job in the Army and learned that he had some leadership qualities, and then went out into the world and started his own company, which he ran right up to the last day of his life. And
wow.
So my dad's story is an important one of how we go on when we're starting in a moment of lostness, of not knowing who we are or what we do well, but slowly gathering an understanding of who we are and how we can clear the path forward and move forward on that path to live out our best possible life, which is what he did.
It's interesting, the impressions our parents make on us, as young children growing up and then young adults. And I was listening to a podcast by Guy Kawasaki with the gal that writes all the books on positive psychology. She wrote all the book on grit. I'm trying to think of her name. Is it Dweck? I think it is. Whatever. She's of Asian descent, and her father was a hard driver, told them all to go to school, and it was all about education. And her mother took kind of the role as, the mom, but she really wanted to be an artist. And she really didn't realize she respected her father, but until her father died and her mother let her art blossom and really came out and became an artist. She actually rented a whole other place in this old folks' home to actually create the art. That just how strong she really was in spite of that, right? And, I think sometimes we get mixed signals, right? And we really don't realize how strong these other people are. But in spite of it, they're there supporting the whole family. And mothers are so very important. It's not Mother's Day, but it's coming up, right?
You're so right. Such a great point, Greg. Number one, often our parents didn't know how to go about saying things and doing things, but their intention was so good. They really wanted to bring out the best in us.
Yeah.
Yet the way they went about it is what ends up getting critiqued.
Yeah.
Oh, come on now. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have said that to me, or you wouldn't have done that, or, and often they didn't know how to go about their business. So, way back in the day, I wrote a book called How to Talk to Your Kids, and it was after Columbine, and it was how to talk to your kids about school violence. We were just having the mass shootings, the awakening of violence in our country, unfortunately and sadly. And the book, people say, how do you talk to your kids? I say, you don't talk, you listen.
Yeah.
Every good relationship begins with listening and asking those open-ended questions, not open-ended, the fake questions that are really laced with a message like, hey, you going to wear that jacket again? It's like, that's not a real question. That's a question. That's a message disguised as a question, but it's asking your kids those open-ended questions that allow them to consider their options and to voice their perspective, their ideas, their imagination, everything. And then when asked, well, Poppy or Dad, what do you think? To be able to say, well, I'm not sure 100%, but what I've been thinking is that this is what happened. My daughter Jenna, who's the beautiful young woman we spoke of earlier in the podcast, who died at age 21. At age 4, Jenna came up to me and said, Dad, why do we have to die? Like, okay, you're having your first existential moment of angst, and kids do. And how we answer those and how we start this life, how we go on when death is a concern our whole lives. Do we spend our life running in fear and dreading? And I think the How We Go On book is really my idea of how do we face into, every single person listening to this and everybody is having a what now moment in their life.
Yep, that's
going, what now? Or what now? And now that I realize that I'm not going to live forever, that life is a lease deal. What now? Because my marriage is struggling. What now? Because I'm approaching retirement. How do I do this? What now? My mom and dad are getting older. Or what now? My grandkids are doing something I don't like. Do I say something to my son or daughter? It's whatever your what now moment is. A change, a challenge, a loss, an opportunity. You've met the person of your dreams. What now? How am I going to blow this? Or you've gotten the job of your dreams, or something's happening in the world that you want to support. What now? So
yeah.
Whether we face into whether we void and deny, or whether we face into that moment courageously, summon the strength and the clarity to face into them and to do something that's going to lead to not only our best possible future, but the best possible future of our kids, our families, our communities, our nation, our world. That defines the quality of our lives, and it defines our character. And whether we're going to leave a legacy of love or one of chaos and indifference.
Well, your book, and whether you're contemplating your finitude or not, I think I'm going to be 70 in July. So what happens is you start thinking about these things, your legacy, your children, your finances, your everything. There's a lot of things that are questioned. And then you start questioning a lot of times, well, what is it that I'm doing to make a difference? I know one of those things that you speak about is this book emphasizes the importance of self-compassion. Because when you start asking those questions, you can actually also start beating up on yourself. Well, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I do that? Or what could I do? Exactly. And you talk about courage and gratitude. That's in the subtitle of the book.
Yep.
How can individuals cultivate these qualities in themselves, especially in the face of these societal pressures, and often value toughness and self-criticism, right? So I think it's important. If people get anything out of this interview, and this is all you get, this is the best thing you could have. Yeah, exactly.
Here's the gem. It's so simple in some way and so difficult. It's so challenging because we've been learning to talk to ourselves as though we have our foot on our throat. Many of us have been doing it. We don't even know we do it. It's like, did I just say that to myself? Did I just do that? Did I just not do anything? It's our foot on our throat. And our foot on our throat is impatience, harsh self-criticism, condemnation, self-condemnation. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm such a jerk. How could, it's all those things. It's judgment. It's that harshness. And if we can begin to catch ourselves with our foot on our throat, saying and doing things that come from harsh self-criticism, self-condemnation, blame, and move our hand down to our heart. With our hand on our heart, it's the hand of self-compassion, of kindness, of patience, and understanding that we're all a work in progress, that things take time. There's no quick fix to certain things. To understanding, clarity, to tough love, but with kindness. We need to be tough with ourselves sometimes, but let's do it from kindness, not from here.
Yeah, not choke ourselves
Condemnation.
off.
This
Yeah.
cuts off growth. It cuts off air. It cuts off possibility. It cuts off the ability to be compassionate. Because if we start catching ourselves, say, let me say that again to myself. Instead of, how come you don't know that? It's, how could I not know everything all at once?
Yeah. Well, you do some great teaching in this book, and one of them is they're really simple little techniques, and one of them is the stops. Introduce the concepts of stops in the moment of profound change or loss. Okay, we all stop anyway when that happens.
Absolutely.
The question is, can you discuss the stop that somebody encounters personally or professionally, whether it's career-wise or it's a loss somewhere, and the process of turning it into start again? Because here's where people actually, I think, fear enters the picture and worry enters the picture. Another doctor from Del Mar, Dr. Steve Berman, you might actually know him, just wrote a book on and it's actually got the 4 protocols for stopping worry. And I think this is where we get a lot of this worry from. If something happens and they go, oh my gosh, this is going to change my whole life. Well, it's going to change it for the better if you look at it a different way. Talk about these stops and starting again.
Stops are opportunities. Often we experience them as a threat or a danger. It's like, oh my God, everything, I'm lost. I feel empty. And emptiness, by the way, is a natural, normal experience that we all have. Sometimes we just feel empty. We haven't filled the cup. We've experienced lostness or emptiness or unknowingness. Or something happens, something that is an unwelcome change or an unwelcome loss or an unwelcome challenge. And these things can stop us in our tracks. We get stuck, we get stalled, we get paralyzed with fear or anxiety. And if we have our foot on our throat, it gets worse. If we catch ourselves and say, wait a minute, how am I talking to myself? How am I approaching this? How could I be talking to myself? This is why we also go to coaches and counselors and therapists. It's because we want somebody to slow us down and help us move that foot off our throat and get our hand on our heart. Because what does a good therapist and a coach do? They listen and help us understand that what we're feeling isn't the whole picture, that it's what we're feeling. Our emotional radar system is working. It's kicking up some understanding about we're having a reaction to something. But that's not where it should stop. Let's talk about that reaction. Let's talk about other ways we could be reacting. Let's talk about the opportunity side. How might facing into this give me greater clarity about what I really want? Help me make decisions that are difficult. Help me create the future that I want, and then to begin to harvest the future that I already have, that I'm not harvesting, that I've learned to take for granted. So all those things can be the opportunity side of what's coming up, of what's bubbling up, of what's surfacing in our lives in those what now moments. And how do we turn them, instead of paralyzing, being paralysis and being stuck and being stalled and criticizing ourselves and beating ourselves up as though we're in a courtroom with only a prosecuting attorney waving an admonishing finger, producing evidence that we're a terrible person, instead of just acting like we're in a courtroom with a prosecutor. We're suddenly in a court, and out of the courtroom and in a living room, with a jury, a judge, a defense attorney. We're talking to ourselves with kindness, patience, understanding, and producing creative solutions to harvest the opportunity of the moment. And learning to do that takes time, especially when we don't even realize that we've been walking around most of our lives like this.
Yeah. And I think what you say there about the moment is important. We really only have the moment. I mean, whether you're Buddhist or not, you have to learn to appreciate. We all set goals for ourselves in lives, but they don't always turn out exactly. So if we're attached to a particular thing happening in a certain way, you've got to let go and let be. And the aliveness comes back in you. What I say, the awareness brings a lot more aliveness. Yes. And when you become super aware of what it is you do to yourself, you become a lot more alive and also much more valuable to the rest of the world, valuable to yourself and the rest of the world. And, your courageous living code is in there, and you developed a code for courageous living. Which aspect of this code do you find most people probably struggle with, and what particular steps can they take to embrace it more fully? Because it takes, you said it now because you've had your hands on your throat through a good part of this interview. It takes a lot of courage to let go of your throat, right? And to open up to ask those important questions versus, as we've seen in therapy, right? Well, I'm going to brush it under the rug. I don't want to address this, Ken. I'm going to put this over here for now. We're going to put it in a holding pattern. And
learn to positive think my way out of it.
Right, exactly.
None of that works. So let me tell you what I do to start every day. I do a walk. I take the dog. My wife runs. She can still run. Put a lot of miles on my knees. I do a brisk walk, a couple of miles, and it's a meditation walk. And I invite people to do this with whatever you do. You could lay in bed and do it. You could turn on soft music and do it. You could go for a walk and do it, or anything. But I ask myself several questions to have that awakening in every day, and to be on the path, my code of courageous living. First question I ask myself in the morning, and I invite everybody to consider doing this. Write down your favorite questions. What's weighing most heavily on my heart today? Mm-hmm. Not for the rest of my life, not in the past. Today, what's weighing most heavily on my heart? And spend a few minutes there. Could be what's happening in the world, how we feel about what's happening in our country, being in the middle of an election year. It could be what's happening as we realize that we're turning 70, like you so profoundly and honestly acknowledged. So whatever it is, let it air out. Let yourself be aware of what's weighing most heavily on your heart. Second question, what's making my heart sing today? Today, what's making my heart sing? I get to be with my grandson. I spent the day yesterday. I have twin grandsons. They're 4 years old. I got to spend the day with one of them. I get to spend today with the other one. We're going to go on an adventure. And he's going to ask me 1,000 questions. Poppy, why does this happen? Why is that? What's that? What's it? He's in that question asking. And I get to be that grandpa that says, what do you think? And draws out what he's thinking, gets to know him. And then we go from there. So that's what my heart is singing, because I'm blessed with that kind of an opportunity. What are you blessed with today? What's making your heart sing today? The third question is the promise I make to myself today. The promise today that I make to myself. And it could be to continue eating the food that's going to allow me to maintain this wonderful weight that I've taken up, my post-COVID weight, or to stay healthy or to stay vibrant. Maybe today I promise that I'm going to finally render that apology to somebody that I need to apologize to, or the I love you to somebody that I need to tell that I love, whatever it is. And the last question might be something like you just said before, today there's an opportunity to let go of what? A little bit more. Let go of what? A little bit more. What do I carry around? What am I lugging around in this life that I need to let go of? What do I need to let go? And people could formulate a lot of other questions that awaken us before the day even really starts. It's the entry into the day that awakens us to the greater possibilities of each day that we're not going to get back, each day that represents an opportunity to clear that path forward and move forward into the life that we want to be, more of the life that we want to be living, with the patience and the understanding that we're all work in progress, that sometimes things take a while to unwind,
Right.
a while to cultivate qualities in ourselves. And so for me, the code of the first step in the code of living courageously is honest self-assessment. It's moving on that continuum from denial and avoidance, over to the side of opportunity, honest self-assessment, being truthful, telling ourselves the truth, because moving from the truth into our day, into our week, into our lives, into our relationships, into what's happening in our communities, in our country, moving into the truth of that is where the greatest possibilities are.
Well, I appreciate those questions, and I would just add one more thing, and that would be that you add a sense of gratitude that you woke up in the morning and that you had the ability to do the things that you're doing today. So gratefulness is a big
That's
one.
my fifth question.
Okay, and then the other one I would add, and other
today,
one
the things that are the gratitude that's swelling in me today to express and to acknowledge. And that's beautiful. And sometimes it's, there can be so many other great questions. Everybody's different. So I invite everybody to create the question that really speaks most directly to what's happening in your life, in your heart, in your relationships, the opportunities or the threats, to do that risk assessment that helps all of us make better decisions.
Well, and I would encourage my listeners to, this came up for me on Sunday, actually.
Yeah.
We oftentimes get just anxious about to-do lists. And I said one small little thing is, don't call it a to-do list, call it an opportunity list.
I love that.
Right. So every one of the things that is on your to-do list that you think you have to do today, look at every one of those as an opportunity to get something out of the way, to move something forward, right? Exactly.
Here to here. Exactly. Of a question from here, the pressure, it's like, come on, get that list done.
Right.
Look at those items from last week that never got done. What's your problem?
Right.
You're weak. You're a failure.
Yeah.
All the admonishment, all the criticism, the self-condemnation that we spend on today on those to-do lists. Move the question down to here. It's like, what's my opportunity? And how can I accept that I'm not going to get everything done today, that some things will get done tomorrow.
Right.
Things I need
or the next week.
Or the next week. Some things it's okay to get it done next week or next month.
Right.
The greatest question for people who are grieving, who are such high achievers and are used to getting so much done, they've taken a hit. They've suffered a life-changing loss. And they no longer have the luxury of being impatient and demanding with themselves or pleasing everybody. They're such type E's, please everything to everybody else. And instead, they have to really take care of themselves, because grief is an opportunity to learn greater self-compassion in the middle of the deepest sorrows, and it's to take care of ourselves. So stopping and saying, you know what, I'll get back to that person in a couple of months, or I'll get around to that. I need to put that on hold, or I need to take a sabbatical from that in my life because I'm going to need time to process these sorrows, these changes, the adjustments I'm going to need to be making in my life, and my children are going to need to be, or my family's going to need to be making. And
you're saying to take time for yourself, quality time, and I think what this whole self-discovering growth. This podcast is called Inside Personal Growth. We focus on personal growth and wellness and spirituality and business. There's 4 kind of genres, but in how we go on, there's this strong theme of continuous self-discovery and growth that you've been talking about it for the last 25, 30 minutes. And I get that. Can you share a recent moment of self-discovery or growth that surprised you, even after all your years of personal growth and development work, plus you sharing all these in group counseling sessions and counseling sessions as being a great psychologist, doing all the work you've done, the speaking you've done? What's up for Ken?
Oh, the opportunities in this life are remarkable. And I'm going to give you 2 quick ones. Number 1 is one that you're experiencing, the awakening into the 7th decade of life.
Mm-hmm.
And you suddenly you are 60 years old or 50 years old or 40 or 30. I don't know. And when did that happen? Or 70 or 80? Or like some friends that I have that are in their mid 80s or turning 90, and they're going, when did this happen? Or how can I awaken to the opportunity at this what now moment in my life? So though that's in general, it's the opportunity of the things that come to mind. Like one of the things that comes to mind when you turn 75 or when you turn 80 is the what if question. Have I left a legacy of chaos? Have I put my house in order? And you're going, oh my God, I haven't put my house in order. What happens to all these books and these files and this mess, this clutter? Have I given my daughter and my wife and my son-in-law a year of work to unclutter and to figure out what to do with all this stuff? Or am I going to put my house in order? And when we don't know how much time we have, when we get to a certain age, there's an awakening of it's time to put my house in order. So for me, that became hiring somebody who was great at uncluttering and getting them to sit with me and go through files of decades and awards and this and that and figure out in 3 piles what to do. This goes to the trash. This goes to recycle or to where it can be used again. And this gets saved as sacred, but for a specific person or a group or whatever. And that's number 1. Number 2 is that my mom passed a number of years ago, and it's actually a month before she passed, I visited her. She lived in Encinitas at Seacrest Village.
I know it.
And I would go visit her. We'd have lunch once or twice a week. And I was visiting her. And I said, Mom, I've got to go. And she looked at me and she pulled closer than she had ever been to me, that I can ever remember. And she said, do you know how grateful I am for you in my life? Ever since your father died, you've been there at every step when I needed you most. You call me every morning and you say, how's my favorite mother? You do all these things. You've been such a beloved son. And we both had tears running and I had to get to an appointment, and I'm going because I'm in this very busy time of life. I said, Mom, I'm going to need to go in 15 minutes and so on. And we said our goodbyes, and I got in the car to drive away. And I turned on the radio, Greg. What the hell was I doing turning on the radio? And I turned off the radio and I said, what am I doing? Is my receiver broken? I was unable to receive the love that a mother, that any son would be so proud and swelling with gratitude to receive. That I almost don't have a space in here to receive the love that somebody just tried to give me.
Mm.
Other tried to give me. How many times in my life have I deflected the love that somebody was trying to give me? Maybe it wasn't wrapped with a certain bow, or it didn't have a note with it, or it wasn't said in the way that I best received love. Who knows? But have I done this? Maybe my receiver's broke. So since my mom's passing, which is now a couple of years, I have been working on fixing my receiver. When I give a speech now, I realized when I would give a speech, I would run off the stage. I'd say, thank you, everybody, and I'd smile and I'd leave stage. Now I put my hand on my heart, and that's my way of signaling myself to take that deep breath and to receive the gratitude, because I've just poured my heart out for an audience, and they're trying to say thank you to me. And I want to receive that thank you, their gratitude. And I do that. And I'm learning how to, with all that I've learned and all that I've done, I'm learning how to receive graciously the love, the good deeds, the good faith, the goodwill, all the goodnesses, the good things that people are doing in the world. We watch people right now who are trying to assume noble moral leadership in the world. Well, I've started spending a lot more time supporting them. I had a blessed meeting with a guy named Jamie Raskin, one of our incredible visionary leaders. I met Amy Klobuchar 3-4 weeks ago. I think she's a remarkable woman. I've spent time with a guy named Adam Schiff, who's a senator, brilliant senator, who I think is so I'm expressing appreciation for those people that I believe are visionary leaders who are creating the kind of world that I want my grandkids to grow up in, where there's opportunity and where we're treating each other with kindness, not judgment, and
with
people. Yeah.
Well, with all the divisiveness that's occurred as a result of, instant on media, social media, and everything we've got, I get that it's easy for any generation to get caught up into the challenges associated with dealing with that just on a regular basis, because it's everywhere. It's always on. And you taking time to put your hand over your heart, the reciprocity is really, really very important. And I'm probably much like you. It's like, with your mother, you were like ready to move on to the next. Oh, I've got to go to the next. I got to go to the next. And taking that time to reflection, and I asked you, what's up for Ken? And I think the big discovery for you is just slowing down and being able to receive that and understand that for many, many years, people have been giving it to you, but have you actually taken the time to actually have the wonderment of receiving it? And that brings me to this last question to wrap up our podcast. Every generation, I look at the children behind my kids behind me, and then the generations that are to come, grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren. What message do you hope the readers, especially the younger ones, are going to take from how we go on to empower them through their own life challenges and their potential losses in life? What do you want to leave these readers with?
I want to leave them with the idea that some parts of being a person are difficult, are really hard. There are some sweet parts to this ride, some miracles and gifts and blessings and opportunities. Here we are flying through space. And we're not just in the universe on a planet. Neil deGrasse Tyson has told us now there are universes.
Oh, yeah.
So we're flying. We're in the middle of this great mystery, but this amazing miracle. We've been given life. We can be conscious We can look at ourselves in the mirror. We can improve ourselves. We can help support the next generation who's going to be standing on our shoulders to become the better version of themselves, to become more civil, more understanding, more kinder, and more aware that sometimes we turn the fear that we have into othering people, to making them of a different race, our racism, our anti-Semitism, our misogyny, because they're women or they're men, they're other. The people who are different have so much more in common with us than is different. And even those people who disagree with who you should vote for the next president, they still want the best for their children, for their country, for their community. Most of them do. And I think I would leave them with the idea that to please treat yourself. You're growing, you're learning. You don't have everything figured out. Maybe you never will. But allow yourself to grow and to ripen, whether you're ripening into your teens, whether you're like our grandkids, Greg, you're ripening into childhood, whether you're ripening into your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, midlife, the later years, you're on the back nine of life, whatever it is, allow yourself and treat yourself with kindness and patience and understanding, because how you treat yourself is how you're going to treat other people and the world around you.
Yeah, and I love the title, How We Go On, and the courage and gratitude that it takes, because there are times in our lives when we're going to have to stop and reassess things. And
some newfound courage.
That's right. And you've given people in this book the opportunity to look at that, no matter what stage of life you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager reading this book, or you're somebody 70 or 80 years old reading this book. There's opportunity everywhere, opportunity to look at things from a different perspective and a different way to view your world. And I think as soon as you open up to the wonderment of that, you open up into a whole new world of being able to say, oh, there is more that I could do, and there's also more that I can receive for myself, so I feel loved and honored, and whatever it might be that you need. And I think that reciprocity part is really, really, really important. And Ken, I want to thank you for being on Inside Personal Growth, spending time sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your ability to reach people through your spoken language. You're awesome at staring into the camera and getting people to actually pay attention. So for all of you who are listening still to this podcast, go to kendruck.com or go to howwegoon.com. Either place, you can learn more about this book, more about Ken's work. He also has a foundation for his daughter. You've created a Jenna Druck Foundation, right? Still there?
The foundation is not the Jenna Druck Foundation anymore. After years, I outsourced it to somebody else to raise $1.5 million a year.
Okay.
And I'm writing books and meeting people and speaking and helping with different causes. But Greg, I wanted, before we stop, thank you, because I get your information every week. I see what you're doing. You are a visionary leader in our community and in all the places you reach, with the quality of the programming that you are and have been for so many years providing to all of us. And I want to thank you. You're one of the people I would thank today. Thank you.
Well, there are so many books we can read, right? And I only touch on a very small portion of them, but I hope the books that I touch on, people take the time, because the only difference between who you are today is the people you hang around with and what you read. And so if you really want to become a master at your skill, or even have a better life, read more and hang out with better people.
If you're not a reader, you can listen to this book.
That's right. That's right.
Audible.
That's right.
$2.
Either way, you could get this content. And I think the key is continual learners love this. And those are the people that listen to this show. So please go get the book. Can you hold it up again? We'll kind of end the podcast with that. He's got the book. Go get a copy of How We Go On, Self-Compassion, Courage, and Gratitude for the Path Forward. Dr. Ken Druck, thank you so much.
And by the way, there's me and Jack in the back, not just the author, but got to have the author's dog.
That's right. Jack I got 2 little dogs myself. I'm not
sleeping right over there.
We all love our pets. And when those pets pass on, hopefully we'll adopt other pets into our
I want to show you something quickly. This is the kindest thing that our other pet does.
That is...
And us this. Is this beautiful?
That is cool. Bean was his name.
Bean was our other boxer that died. And so that to us. Is that kind?
It is really sweet. It's very sweet. Well, you take care of yourself. And namaste to you. Thank you for being on my show. It's always an honor.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.